did Paul contradict Christ? There are so many who believe that Christ and Paul had two different messages. This is shared by Christians and many who identify as Hebrews or Israelites. But both of these views stem from ignorance about what the Bible actually teaches. This ignorance, or not knowing or not reading the Bible in its entirety, causes Christians to only read the New Testament and Hebrews or Israelites to only read the Old Testament. But both should be read. They're both equally important. They both say the same thing. I came across this channel on the internet. I think she's a former Christian and now to be an atheist. To be honest, I'm not really sure exactly what she is.
Now in Matthew 5:17-20, Jesus talks about not coming to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. He says, "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who set aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." And I feel as though Jesus spends so much of his ministry saying, be kind, do the good works, do good things for other people, love others, care for others, be merciful, be compassionate, be humble, be all of the good qualities. Do those things, you will be righteous and you will be called into the kingdom of God. But Paul says in Ephesians 2:8-9, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." Now, of course, Paul makes other statements about works versus faith, and faith without works is dead, and he contradicts himself, but he specifically says it is by grace you have been saved through faith. And I think this theme just occurs over and over and over again throughout Paul's writings. It's all about the resurrection of Jesus, having faith in Jesus.
In her own mind, she believes she has a valid point, and she believes she now has clarity now that she's not a Christian anymore. But she's all over the place, and she sounds as confused as most children do. Most of her ideals are childlike, but as followers of the Most High, we should be able to answer questions like these without getting angry, without raising our voice. Because if we don't understand when people pose questions like this, are we grounded in what we really believe? And down the line, we're just going to fall off the trail at some point anyway. So it's important to understand everything that you believe thoroughly. So let's start by reading Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. "Whosoever then shall break one of these commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven." What we're reading in Matthew chapter 5, 19 and 20 is Yeshua or Christ's Sermon on the Mount. He addresses the importance of the commandments and the nature of righteousness in the kingdom of heaven. He's emphasizing the importance of even the least of the commandments. He states that anyone who even breaks the smallest commandment and teaches others to do so will be least or low in the kingdom of heaven. Conversely, those who practice and teach these commandments will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. He's affirming that the ongoing value of all the commandments that the Most High gave to Moses on Mount Sinai. This statement counters any notion that Yeshua's teachings would abolish or diminish the law. Instead, he upholds the law and the importance of all the laws. So how does this differ from what Paul taught? Well, Paul says in Ephesians, so let's read Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. "For by grace ye are saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is a gift of Elohim, not of works, lest any man should boast." So Paul's explaining what most Christians use as the central for all their theology. They teach that grace without the commandments is how you're going to get into the kingdom. But that's not exactly what Paul is saying here. He emphasizes that it's grace and it's a gift, that no man should boast or brag about being righteous enough to enter into the kingdom. He's speaking to a group of people here that are in Ephesians. So there's a certain belief that these people may have had that Paul is emphasizing this to. And Paul also in Galatians pretty much states the same thing to the people in Galatia. Galatians chapter 5, verse 4. "Christ is become of no effect unto you. Whosoever you are justified by the law, you are fallen from grace." Paul reiterates the same message to the people who are in Galatia. On its face, they seem to be two opposing ideas, but it's a must that we read the entire Bible, the only way to really understand the concepts that are written in it. So, is this different from what Christ taught? On its face, it may seem that way for somebody who may not have read the entire Bible. So now to explain what most people to believe to be a divergence between the two teachings, let's start by reading Luke chapter 17 verse 7. But which of you, having a servant plowing or feeding a cattle, will say unto him, by and by, when he is come from the field, go and sit down to meat? But will not rather say unto him, make ready wherewith I may sup, and gird thyself and serve me first, till I have eaten and drunken, and afterward thou shalt eat and drink? Doth he thank his servant because he did the things that were commanded him? I trow not. So likewise, when ye have done all the things which are commanded, you say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done that which was our duty to do. In Luke chapter 17, verses 7 through 10, Yeshua uses a parable to illustrate a lesson about humility and duty of service. The parable or the story describes a scenario where a servant, after working in the field, is expected to prepare the meal for his master before eating himself. This reflects the normal expectations of the duties of a servant. He's expected to do his work, and then when the master comes home, to prepare his meal. He doesn't get a special thank you for doing what was commanded. Yeshua applies this principle to his disciples. Even after we have done all the commandments that the Most High has expected us to do, all the commandments that were written in the book of the law that the Most High gave to Moses, we are not going to get a special thank you for that. And even at the end of doing all that, we say we are unprofitable servants. In other words, we still need grace. We cannot brag that we were able to do all the commandments or we did what was commanded. Christ and Paul are saying that salvation is a gift. We all fall short. It's not saying don't keep any of the commandments, don't even try. It's saying after you've done all the commandments. Paul and Christ are saying the same thing. After you've done all the commandments, you're going to still need grace from the Most High. But I see Christians saying we shouldn't keep the commandments, and I see Hebrews acting as if they have already made it, carving out spaces for themselves in the kingdom. But this is what Paul is teaching against. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 12. For the word of Elohim is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. Grace is the gap between what we read and what we would like to do in our heart or in our thoughts, but we are incapable of doing because we are inherently flawed. In our mind and in our heart, we're supposed to wholeheartedly attempt to follow all these commandments. And when we fall short, we will need grace. Grace is the gap between what we read and what we have the ability to do because we are inherently flawed. We will make mistakes down the line. So when we keep all the commandments and we do all the best that we can do, we still are going to need some sort of favor. We call that favor grace. We're going to need that from the Most High to make it into the kingdom. Nobody should believe that they have made it until the end. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.